I wanted to be at Texas State. I chose to be at Texas State. I'm from Texas. That was important to me. I always knew if the right guy got this job, you better watch out.
You better watch out. This is Win Now or Get Bent, episode 136. If you don't already know, I'm Kev Chardello, coming to you on Friday, October 13th, spooky day. And the Bobcats are back in black at the WAC. Yeah, they'll be in all black uniforms taking on the ULM Warhawks tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Looking to avenge that 31-30 loss from last year to ULM. Anybody remember that? Ended with a dud. We'll talk about that one. We'll talk about this game. And we'll talk about everything with the Bobcats. Trying to bounce back from a loss last week, too, to Louisiana, that 34-30 loss. See if they can avenge it this go around. Big crowd. Supposed to be a big crowd there this game. Hopefully I'll see some of y'all out there. But this episode is brought to you by TGC, the Galindo Collective LLC, TGC at thegalindocollective.com. It's Galindo, galindocollective.com. A team of professional consultants dedicated to helping others realize their business potential through people, planning, and practice. Their services cover a wide range of areas such as business strategy, marketing, human resources, and financial planning. If you own a property or a business and want to maximize its profitability, contact TGC at thegalindocollective.com and follow their social media platforms on Twitter at TGC LLC and on Instagram and Facebook at the Galindo Collective. Shout out to my guy, Rick Galindo, a true Tech State sicko, a Tech State grad, sticking with us for the whole season and beyond. Real excited to be promoting TGC LLC at thegalindocollective.com. We are also sponsored by Balcones Roofing and Remodeling, the most experienced F-Wave roofing contractor in Central Texas. F-Wave is a highly impact-resistant lifetime shingle with stunning designer curb appeal. It is the only roofing product on the market with an exclusive hail warranty. This weather's starting to get dicier and dicier the further we get into winter and fall. We all know that hail's coming. Might as well prepare. Hit up our guys at Balcones Roofing and Remodeling. Shout out to Carl Larson over there, a new sicko, a converted Gamecock. He's now with the good guys in the maroon and gold. Shout out to Carl Larson for partnering with us this season. Hit them up at balconesroofsaustin.com. It's Balcones, Balcones, balconesroofsaustin.com. Call them at 512-937-8805. It's 512-937-8805. And follow them on Twitter at Balcones Roofing. We are also sponsored by my guy, Thaddeus Watkins, San Marcos Edward Jones financial advisor. You all know who Thad is. Does your financial advisor take the time to really listen to you? Is your financial strategy personalized to you and your family? Will your financial advisor be there as your life and financial situation change? When you work with Thaddeus Watkins, your San Marcos Edward Jones financial advisor, he focuses on what's important to you. You'll work together and use an established process to create a personalized financial strategy backed by the advice, tools, and resources to help you reach your goals. Contact Thaddeus Watkins at 737-373-8200. That's 737-373-8200 and at edwardjones.com/Thaddeus-Watkins and on Twitter at Big Thad, BIGGTHADD _. Don't forget the underscore on his Twitter name. But who better to protect your finances than a former Tech State offensive lineman? Hit up my guy Thad. Thanks to Thad, former Tech State player. Appreciate you. We are also sponsored by Austin Patchmaster. Our good friends over at austin.patchmaster.com. Is your ceiling or wall cracked? Need that popcorn ceiling removed? Did you punch a hole in your wall after the Bobcats lost last weekend? It's okay. You're not alone. Hit up my guy, Michael Clements, a true Tech State sicko, a Texas State grad. They are servicing the greater Austin area, taking care of your drywall repair needs, your ceiling needs, whatever you need. Hit them up. If you're in Houston or Dallas, they can send you a referral. So still hit up my guys at Austin Patchmaster, and they'll get you set up over there. But if you're in this area, hit them up. Let them help you out. Again, that's austin.patchmaster.com. and you called them at 512-200-3888. That's 512-200-3888. All right, thank you to our sponsors. Let's get to these Bobcats. We're going to do a preview, of course. ULM game coming up tomorrow. We'll talk about these Warhawks. We'll talk about these Bobcats too, and how how what they're doing plays into this whole situation. But this week, before we get to that game, we'll talk a little bit about this week. I'm sure a lot of you saw on Wednesday there was an announcement with First Lockhart National Bank that they have agreed to the largest NIL deal for Texas State athletes so far. And they brought out a bunch of players. When I was there, it was football players. We had TJ Finley, Brian Holloway, Ben Bell, Nash Jones. Sean Holton was there. I didn't get to interview Sean Holton, but he was there. I wanted to talk to him. He's always a good interview. But yeah, they showed up to the bank. They were available to the media. They were shooting little commercials for the bank and everything. It's pretty cool. It's cool to see this day and age athletes getting compensated for their athletic play, because a lot of these guys, this is their one chance to capitalize on it. It's the unfortunate truth with college football is 1.6% of all the college football players are going to go pro. So the other 98.4%, was that good math? How'd I do there? They have to capitalize when they can, strike when the iron's hot. So it's nice to see that. Although some of those guys there, I'm pretty sure are going to go to the next level, but that's another discussion. But this deal, and when I showed up, got to do the journalist thing, asking questions. What's this deal about? What does this mean? How much are these guys getting compensated? When you say big, how big? What does big mean? When you say biggest at Texas State? I didn't get any figures about how players are getting compensated, how much they're making, how they're getting paid, any of that. I didn't. It seemed like it was a brand new deal. It's like they struck this deal on Tuesday and then held the press conference on Wednesday. So there's still some unknown. But as far as when they say biggest NIL deal, they mean as far as scale, as far as players and cross sports. Because I just mentioned football players that were there. But this goes through to volleyball, to soccer, to basketball. It extends to other sports. So I think that's what I know that's what they mean when they say this is the largest. That's what they mean by that. It's not the largest amount of money to one player or to any of the players, but it is something for them. They have some sort of agreement. Where, as I mentioned, they were shooting some sort of commercial put on by Victory Star NIL, which we know Janelle Fitzgerald has been on this podcast. If you missed that, it's one over summer. A good one to go back and listen to about what Victory Star is doing. But they are just kind of the mediary between the players and these businesses, these sponsorships. They don't know how to. It's a whole deal trying to find sponsorships. I know. And and when you're playing football, you're not really focused on that. So that's what they offer. And that's Victory Star NIL, and they are presented by the Link U. That was something I was told to say when talking about Victory Star at this press conference or media. It wasn't really a press conference. It was like they just invited media out to come, talk to the players, but not like in an official press conference setting, more like an immediate event, if you will. But yeah, it's presented by Link U, and I guess Link U is a NIL collective that extends through multiple colleges, FAU, UNT, Houston. There's a handful of colleges around that they talk to. But yeah, we got to do some interviews with them. We put some of those videos up on our YouTube channel, Win Now or Get Bent on YouTube. Talked to TJ Finley, talked to Nash Jones and Brian Holloway. And it was nice to talk to TJ Finley specifically about a few different things. I mentioned on the last pod how I look at him and I see an NFL quarterback, and I talked to him about what are you thinking about the pro prospects after this season? Is that something on your mind? And he gave the answer that you're supposed to give in those situations, focused on the season, looking to put together 12 games this season before I start thinking about anything like that. I thought that was interesting, his note about the 12 games, wanting to put together 12 games, because his other stops at Auburn and LSU, he didn't do that. injuries were involved, at least in Auburn for sure, where it cut a lot of that short for him. So I can imagine when he's talking about wanting to put together 12 games, something for scouts to look at. Can this guy play a full season? I still think it's something that Texas State fans, you sickos listening right now, need to prepare yourselves for. That it's a good chance that this guy jumps to the next level. He gave the right answer, what he had to give. He didn't say he was or he wasn't, but he is thinking about it. But I think if it was somebody who was fully planning on returning next year, they would have. That's what they say. I'm not worried about that. I'm gonna try and play the following year, something like that, and work my way up the draft. Because that could be the other thing, is if this isn't enough of a scale for scouts this one season, maybe he does return and try and move up in the draft, or make him more valuable with another season put together. I also asked him about his baby due November 11th, and he says he's not missing a game. I think that's where he was really specifically talking about. 12 games are important. He's not even going to miss one when his babies are born. Twins, there's his wife asked him about, or his fiance, I should say, asked him about his fiance too. She's a basketball player, played at LSU and Auburn. So GJ, you might want to offer those kids as soon as they're born. Assuming they're boys, they could play other sports. But yes, another thing we learned this week, that Ishmael Mahdi is a game time decision after his wrist injury last week. 188 yards, 34 carries last week, a lot of carries. A bulk of those carries came after he injured his wrist and came back in. Don't know exactly what the wrist injury is. I'd imagine fracture or break of some kind, because they wrapped it and then put it on a brace before he returned that last game. But the fact that he returned that game and finished it, I feel like he's going to play. May not have as many carries. I highly doubt he has 34. I can't imagine he'll have 34 again in a season, but I didn't think he'd get it once. So we'll see. But obviously they're going to need Mahdi. He's an important piece to this offense. But even if he can go, he probably can't go a whole lot. So there's going to be some other guys. Finally, we heard the name Calvin Hill. I didn't even have to ask about Calvin Hill from GJ Kinney at the press conference. And he said that he is going to get carries this week. Felt that was big. Mentioned other names as well, Jeter and Denario Davenport as guys who are going to get carries. Connor Fox is going to be back this week. So is Jordan Revels. Defensive end Jordan Revels, tight end Connor Fox. Fox only played the first half of that Baylor game, had a 21-yard catch, and then I hadn't seen him since. Revels played the first two games, haven't seen him since. Those are two big guys coming back for this team. I mean, Revels is the team captain. Connor Fox hadn't been here long, but is already one of the established leaders. And probably the biggest news from that was Malik Hornsby potentially playing some running back to supplement some issues with Mahdi, or maybe just to change it up and have some cool packages. That's what GJ Kinney called it, cool packages. That should be interesting. It's something that a lot of people around have been saying, why not use this guy? He's sitting on the bench, put him out there, do something with him. And they do it sometimes. I mean, he has 4 rushing touchdowns. We had the whole Iceman thing through that 3-game winning streak where he'd come in and just finish the game for the Bobcats with a rushing touchdown. He definitely has the ability to do a lot of dynamic things. I mean, even TJ Finley last week was like, I wish he'd play some slot receiver. So it's great to see him finally accepting that it doesn't necessarily have to be under center for you to be impactful, for you to put together really good tape. And I mentioned, I wrote a post about it on patreon.com/windhourgetbent. And I was talking about how maybe, if they do know that Finley is going to the next level, and next year will be Hornsby's year, maybe he's more willing to accept this role this season, just to help out this offense in any way that he can. And then somebody mentioned on that post, they had a comment. I should have made a note of your name. Sorry about that. I appreciate the comment though, that it's just like either that or or Hornsby looks at this offense, this fast-paced offense, and knows he can put together that tape, these highlights that will get him noticed at the next level, that this offense changes it up. And if you look at his stats this year compared to his at Arkansas and the efficiency, how quickly he's done it in a short window of time, I think that's a fair assessment. That, yeah, this offense does change. He's like, there's a lot of things I can do. And it's not necessarily make him run the ball at that running back position or slot receiver position or athlete position, whatever you want to call it. Could even throw from out of some of these packages. And there's just a lot that can happen there. But I'm also glad they waited till the second half of the season to keep it in their pocket. We'd see little glimpses of it. And this is me assuming, who knows? This could all also be window dressing from G.J. Kinney, just trying to throw off ULM. Oh, I might play the backup quarterback at running back, Might just be some information to throw at them to see if you can shake them off a little bit. But I think it would be really cool if it's not window dressing and they're serious about it. I think there's a lot of fun things you can do, especially passing out of the backfield, something. But I'm excited. I hope we see that. Malik Hornsby at running back, number 4 at some running back. But let's jump into ULM. Let's talk about this game preview coming up. Before we get into the game fully, this game this year, let's do a little bit of a review because they've played a lot. They've actually played 20 times in the past, ULM and Texas State, going back to some Southland days in the 80s. In fact, ULM, and I think I owe ULM and the Warhawks an apology. I'm always like, it's nice that there's always someone below Texas State, like ULM. I've said that. I've said that on this pod. I've said it in my life. But then you look at the overall record, 20 games, as I said, against ULM. ULM leads 13-7. 13-7. In fact, when they were both in the Southland Conference in the 80s, from 1986 to 1993, ULM won 7 times, 7-1 in 8 matches, 8 games. Since the two teams have been in the Sun Belt, ULM joined the Sun Belt in 2001, so they've been in the Sun Belt a long time. ULM is 6-4. So, I apologize to ULM. They have 2 different 4-game winning streaks against Texas State. So I need to put some more respect on the Warhawks, formerly the Indians. I didn't realize this. They changed their name in 2006 to the Warhawks. They were the Indians. My high school is still the Indians. Keller High School. Or after I graduated, they were about to change to the Knights, and people got mad. It still exists. It's kind of crazy. But yeah, ULM. There's a lot of games to go through. Like I said, 20 games, and before, when I've done these reviews, I've gone through each game. We're not going to do that. We're not going to go through each game. Specifically, the Sun Belt era hasn't been great for the last, I should say, Texas State Sun Belt era and ULM in that time frame in the last 10, 11 years. It hasn't been great football for either. So neither of those games were really that great. But last year was a close game. It wasn't a great game, but it was close. 31-30. That score made it sound more fun than it was. This 31-30 loss for Texas State last year at Monroe. It's funny because we were just talking all about the lead the Bobcats led up to Southern Miss. 26 unanswered points by Southern Miss. Here's one that might have been forgotten, but it's close to it. It was last year, that ULM game. Texas State got up to a 21-0 lead in the first quarter. 21-0. Javin Banks with 2 touchdowns. Shout out to Javin Banks. But then in the second quarter, ULM scored 2 touchdowns and a field goal, and a Texas State field goal. That made it 24-17 by halftime. So they jump out 21-0. Felt great in the first quarter, and it was already gone by halftime. That great feeling. It was like, man, 24-17. You could just feel it in the air. Like, all right, this is wonky. This isn't going great. In the second half, 2 more touchdowns by ULM. followed by 2 field goals by Texas State. Gets you the end result, 31-30. That seems anticlimactic for a game that had a 1-point score, but it's ULM scored with 10 minutes left. The score was finalized with 10 minutes left in this game. I can remember just the 2 lackadaisical drives for the Bobcats. Both drives were extended by ULM penalties too. It was like ULM was giving them 2 different opportunities to go get it. I can remember the incompletion on 4th and 8 with like a minute and a half left that ended the game, and it's like, I can't believe they a 21-point lead. Then you have 10 minutes to go score a 1 point, and they don't do it. And you know, and when we talk about a conservative second half, that was a conservative second half. That was what settling for field goals looks like. When we get mad about not taking points and going for it on 4th down, got to keep that in mind, that you can, even if you take the points, it doesn't go out, it doesn't work your way. And when it's and if you don't maintain that aggression, you don't stay aggressive and keep going after it the entire second half, that'll happen. Shout out to Chandler Rogers that game. He's doing great at UNT right now. I think he's doing great. I haven't checked his stats in the last couple of weeks, if I'm being honest. But yeah, Chandler Rogers. He's from Texas. I thought for sure Texas State was going to have a better shot at him, but he's up at UNT now. He played for ULM in that game. But that was that game last year. Wasn't a ton of fun. But this game, this year, different team for the Bobcats. As we all know, we're well aware. G.J. Kinney, 53 new scholarship players. It's the number 1 offense in the Sun Belt. It's a lot more fun this year for Texas State, and Vegas thinks so as well. 16.5-point favorites Texas State is at going up against ULM. 16.5. That's a lot. That's a lot. And we saw with Southern Miss, it was around the same for Southern Miss. I say it's around the same. Texas State was favored, is what I mean, and we're not used to seeing that in these Sun Belt games. ULM, tough times for them right now. 3-game losing streak. The last 3 games: 47-3 Texas A&M, 41-40 App State, last second field goal. It's a good game, and then 55-7 South Alabama last week. Start the year, they beat Army 17-13 and Lamar 24-14. Those are their first 2 wins. So they're 2-3, 0-2 in the Sun Belt. It is not great times for the Warhawks. It's hard to even kind of paint a positive picture for them. You know, they're 12th in scoring defense out of 14 teams in the Sun Belt. They're 12th, allowing 34 points a game. They're 13th in total defense, 454.4 yards per game. They're 10th in rush defense, 170.8 yards, and 12th in pass defense, 283 yards. So towards the bottom, at least the bottom 4 in all the defensive categories. 10th is their best positioning with their rush defense. Doesn't get better on offense. In fact, it gets worse. They are dead last in the conference in scoring, 18.2 points per game. Total offense, 325 yards per game. Passing offense, 133 yards a game. And offensive efficiency, 103.7. Full disclosure, I have no idea how they reach that 103.7 number in offensive efficiency. I've seen the formula for it. I don't know how to. I don't have it off the top of my head. I trust the numbers. I look at that. I'm like, that's a high number, or a low number, I guess I should say, for offensive efficiency. And so I'm going to throw that in. I do know that TJ Finley leads in passing efficiency, the Sun Belt. And you know, Jalen Raynor is ahead of him, actually, Arkansas State, now I think about it. If there is one thing they're good at on offense, it's rushing. They're good at running the ball. They're 3rd in conference in rush yards, 192 a game. It's why even when I have players to watch, it's 3 runners right off the bat. Hunter Smith and Isaiah Woolard are two of the threats, 2 main threats at like the running back position, and they also use Jaya Wright out of the quarterback spot. Hunter Smith, 277 yards, 7.3 yards a carry, 2 touchdowns. He's their real stud back, Hunter Smith. Isaiah Woolard, 270 yards himself, 6 yards a carry and a touchdown. Jaya Wright, 253 yards, 4.3 a carry and a touchdown. So I threw a lot of numbers at you just there, but if you hear the number I really want you to hear, obviously yards per carry. They're all getting over 4.3 yards per carry, but they're all between 250 and 277 yards. Very even between those three guys. It's going to be it's a three-headed rush attack for ULM. That's where, if their offense does have success, it hasn't had much, but when it does, that's where it comes from. As I mentioned, Wright's also the quarterback. He's 48 for 92, only 92 attempts on the season. That's 52% completion, 544 yards, 5 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. They're not much of a passing threat. They do have a really good receiver, though. His name's Tyrone Howell. You may remember that name. He's a big receiver, 6'3". He's got 5 touchdown catches this year. He's a 6-year player. Pretty good player. Somebody to definitely keep an eye on for them. Defensively, not a lot going on there either, as I mentioned. But Michael Batten leads the team in tackles with 44. He's from Houston. Want to give him a good shout out. Always got to give these Texas guys a shout out. But you look at that and you're not impressed with ULM. I really like their coach, Terry Bowden, of course, son of Bobby Bowden, FSU great coach, one of the greatest coaches in college football. They're not very intimidating at all, and the Bobcats are favored by a lot of points. But that shouldn't be discounted at all. This team is we saw it last year. They can be salty. Terry Bowden is a pretty good coach. He hasn't had a ton of success at ULM, but they tend to always get some pretty good players, especially runners. And any given Saturday, I mean, we talked about it. The history, 7-13 against this program. Maybe some of us, present company included, myself specifically, so I'm talking about there, have underestimated ULM a little bit, and they can be salty, and they can win some games against the Bobcats, as they've proven in the past. But that being said, there's no reason Texas State shouldn't absolutely demolish this team. Bobcats are at home. They're coming off a loss. We are in the 7th game of this offense. There's no more, it's new. Everyone's figuring everything out. Everybody knows their assignment. Everybody knows what's going on. Even the backups have played at this point. It needs to, they are favored by 16.5. I've mentioned the words trap game before, and they need to continue to avoid these trap games, these teams that they underestimate. I mean, we saw Baylor do it to Texas State to start the year. It can very easily happen where you're like, we're going to win. Man, got a bye week next week. Can't wait to relax a little bit on my bye week. You start thinking about that, and you're not thinking about the game on Saturday. So that needs to be focused up. And considering this team, they haven't done it offensively in a while. I mean, let's go back to even looking at their schedule. They've only put up I guess they got 40 against App State, but besides that, nothing over 24 points. And as we've seen, App State they're weakened this year. They're way less of a threat than I anticipated. I kind of anticipated Coastal's drop off with Jamie Chadwell leaving, but App State falling off is pretty interesting. So offensively, they haven't done a whole lot, but Texas State's defense has let teams, even ones that haven't offensively done a whole lot. Nevada comes to mind. They let them kind of stick into these games. So it's can't lose focus on the team that's coming up right before them. And even with ULM, I thought that was interesting looking back at a note. So real quick, G.J. Kinney, his cousin, is Colby Suits, former ULM quarterback, if anybody remembers that. But yeah, I thought that was an interesting note. I didn't have a good segue or anywhere to put it, so I'm just going to throw it in there Colby Suits, good for him. Shout out to him. That's interesting. GJ Kinney's the connection with coaches and their extended families and in the coaching world. Like, oh yeah, my dad's or my uncle's a coach over here. It's always interesting to hear that, especially with Kinney. But ULM, this is a team that the Bobcats, you look at the stats, you look at what they've done, you've seen what their offense has done, and this is a team that they should demolish, that they should beat by 20 plus points. And it needs to happen because honestly, for being real, if you look at their wins, I mean, yes, they beat Baylor and that was great. It was great to beat that P5. They haven't gone on to do a ton since that game. Baylor is who I'm talking about. They beat Jackson State, they beat Nevada, they beat Southern Miss. They haven't really beaten anybody that is truly a threat. Not yet, at least. And I don't think ULM is that. But that being said, they need to stomp ULM. If they're going to prove that they are who they are, then that needs to happen on Saturday against the team that can't score and they can't stop teams from scoring. There's no reason that Texas State shouldn't go out and absolutely wreck shop on Saturday. It's going to be a huge disappointment if they don't. Even if they just win by a little bit. This should be a game. It's going to be a big crowd. They're going to have the black uniforms. This should be a game where they need to not let the foot off the gas at all in the second half, even if they're winning a little bit. I'm not saying you need to put up, you don't need to win 100-20. I'd like to see over 50, 60. This is an offense that they're a defense that can't, ULM defense that can't stop anybody. So take advantage of that. Reassert yourself and show who you are. Because this is the game. This is the game to do it. I mean, it's going to get tough for the rest of the Sun Belt, and you have a bye week next week. So put it all out there. Because I'm going to tell you this, man. And that loss last week to Louisiana, I was pretty nice about it. Even when I heard back on the pod, I was like, that's a little too nice. I opened it by saying no moral victories because there's not. Even though they were winning for most of that game, they lost at the end, still lost the game. I won't be nice if they lose this one. I definitely won't. Even if they just win by a touchdown, I will be a little concerned that the undisciplined issues that we've seen in the losses and even in some of these wins, the turnovers, the penalties, just the lack of sharpness, the lack of focus in some of these situations, there isn't going to be aw shucks, we'll get them next week feel. It's going to be a bad feeling going into the bye week, a bad taste in everyone's mouth, around the program, the players, everyone looking at the rest of the season because it's going to get real tough after the bye week. So I was real cocky. I said 8 wins on the last one. See, that's where I know things are going well when I have some of y'all out there being like, hey, maybe eight might be a little too optimistic. I was like, wow, okay, all right, I'm being overly optimistic. Usually it's the other way around, so that's a good thing. But this is a good team. Its worst enemy, I've said it before. We've all said it. Its worst enemy is itself. Its lack of discipline in certain areas. And, and GJ Kinney, you listen to his press conference this week, he gets it. He understands that. He also, that's something he's focused on for sure, but he's also not going to quarrel his aggressiveness to make up for that. He's going to ramp up the aggression. Like even when you talk to him about that game and that loss, and you think, oh, there was that moment where he could have taken points before halftime and he went for it and didn't get it. Maybe I was even saying maybe he'll go for it on fourth down less. I imagine we'll see a little bit of that. And then you talk to him and he's just like, I wasn't aggressive enough. Got to capitalize in the red zone. Even though they went 6 for 7 in the red zone last week, he still says got to capitalize in the red zone. His capitalize is because even though I say 6 for 7, 3 of those 6 were field goals. That's not good enough for him. Wants to finish drives in the end zone. And this defense needs this offense to finish drives in the end zone. Because they're as we've said, they're going to allow 35 points. Or they need 35 points to win a game. Not allow 35. They need the offense to score 35 in order to take that W. But this is the game to do it. This is the game to go out there. You're favored. You're at home. It's a team that hasn't done a whole lot. It's a Sun Belt team. It's not, like, yeah, that was great. 77 against Jackson State. It was awesome. I'll remember it for the rest of my life. But this is a bigger opponent. So need to go out there and handle this team, and I expect them to. I fully do. I don't think I've given a score prediction yet. I don't really have one off the top of my head. I never really do have one prepared. I'm gonna say the defense is gonna do better this week. I'm gonna say 52-20. There you go. Nice 32-point win. 52-30. I like that one. I like the way it sounds. I think I really, really want this offense to get over 50. We saw them put up 50 against Southern Miss. I think ULM is worse than Southern Miss. But any given Saturday. But that's enough of a preview for this game. There's not much more you can say than ULM hasn't been good. Texas State has been. Got to dominate. Got to dominate this one. Play a full game too, a complete game. That's something else I really want to see. And they almost had it against Louisiana. They looked good throughout the whole game. They were dicey. Instead of it being like a dicey like half like we saw against Nevada and then against Southern Miss, where it was a tale of two halves for both games. This was, they looked good for most of the game, and then there was just little bitty parts where they weren't. Towards the end of that game, towards the end of the half, in the middle of the third, it's just certain areas where it wasn't crisp, it was falling apart, and that's something we haven't truly seen, maybe since like the Baylor game is a complete game. So would like to see that this game. If there's ever a game to do it, it's this one. This is one where if Texas State is as good as we think they are, they should beat the brakes off the Warhawks. But that'll do it for that. Check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/winnoworgetbent. Check out our merch site. If you're looking on our YouTube channel, you can see me showing off the sweet shirt right there. Awesome merch announcement coming up. We've got some great stuff, some sicko gear. I'll give a little hint. The Wizard, great producer here, Zachary Webb, even made a cool little commercial for it. I can't wait to unveil all that. Hopefully I'm not oversharing before we get to reveal. We're still waiting for some quality check on some things, but it's going to be cool. It's going to be fun. Look out for that. I mentioned our YouTube channel, Win Now or Get Bent, on YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. Sign up accounts for your friends and enemies. Help us grow. We need all of you out there mashing that subscribe button. We're getting there. We're getting our numbers up in the subscribe category. Follow us on Twitter at Win Now or Get Bent, and on Instagram at WNOGB. I mentioned it earlier. Like, subscribe, comment on all our stuff, even on Apple and Spotify. Get in there. Help us out. It helps us grow. It's a nice, good, free way to help us grow. We throw the Patreon at you, which is $5 a month. Get a bunch of articles, good stuff on there. And the merch site, WNOGB.com. If you ever want to support us for free, subscribing, commenting, retweeting, all that stuff helps us. Never feel obligated to have to buy any of this stuff, but doing that helps us, and we greatly appreciate that, as well as we greatly appreciate TGC, Balcones Roofing and Remodeling, Thaddeus Watkins at Andrew Jones, and Austin Patchmaster for sponsoring this episode. And of course, the Wizard, Zachary Webb. Thank you to you, my guy, always working hard. And to the sickos, this wouldn't exist without you. I'd be speaking into the void, so thank you for always tuning in and listening. Good times. Feels good it's a fun season for the Bobcats. I know all of you are feeling good. Hope to see some of you at the game on Saturday. I'll be there. Big crowd. Get there early, apparently. Eclipse as well, I guess. The Eclipse. There's signs all over San Marcos saying prepare for traffic on Saturday because of the eclipse. I guess we're in the prime location for it. Couldn't care less. I guess I'll look up. If I don't have to leave my house, I'll look up at the sky or put on sunglasses or whatever the protocol is. But weird deal. So make sure you get to the game early if you do get out there. But all right, everybody. Win now or get bent.